everyone. Welcome back to another exciting day in mathematics. Whoop, whoop. Warm-up 71 is on the screen. By now, we are experts at all those. So I'll give you guys some time for that. And then I'm going to post a code so you can send me your warm-up on Nearpod. So make sure you have your Chromebooks ready. We're going to be using those today. Okay. I'll give you guys some time. Copy and go. All right. So for the sake of just trying to get back from the whole interim assessment and all that, seems like we've been away for a fat minute or whatever you guys say, right? Be nice. All right, here we go. So I'm going to go over this just for the sake of time. Number one, complete the square and then factor. To complete the square, once again, here it goes. You add, take the coefficient, divide by 2, and square it. Therefore, x squared plus 20x plus 20 divided by 2 is 10. What is 10 squared? 100. So we just completed the square, which means the factors are, let's see, what was this? 10 divided by 2, 20 divided by 2 is 10. That means it was x plus 10 squared. Hands if you got that. All right, let's go to number 2. Once again, the process, square root of -1 times square root of 144. What is square root of -1? That is I. Square root of 144 is 12, so this is 12i. Make sure we got this down because we're about to embark in the next section. Okay. Addition. For the sum, you add these two, so we get -6 plus 2i in that order. Double check, because now we're dealing with complex numbers. The real number goes in the front, the imaginary goes at the end. Subtraction. We get 10. Multiplication. Distributes. We get I squared. Distributes. -8i. Distributes. 2i. Distributes. -16. And then combine like terms, and I'm going to substitute minus well on that step for I squared. Tell your neighbor what to substitute for I squared. What do we substitute? Danny. Very good. -1. That is correct. Anytime you see an I squared, we substitute -1. Combine these two, -8i plus 2i, that's -6i minus 16. So we focus on the constants. -1 and -16, that's -17. Bring down the -6i, and that is our product. Last but not least, division. I plus 2 divided by I minus 8. Fits in there one time. I minus 8. We subtract, distribute. We end up with 10 as a remainder. Therefore, answer 1 plus the remainder of 10 over I minus 8. Last but not least, the inverses. Y equals x plus 2 over 6. Multiply both sides times 6. We get 6y equals x plus 2. Then subtract 2. We end up with 6y minus 2 equals x. Exchange the variables. We end up with 6x minus 2 equals f inverse of x. And the other, y equals 3/5 x plus 3 minus 3 minus 3. Y minus 3 equals 3/5 x. Multiply times the reciprocal, 5 over 3, 5 over 3. This is x equals, distribute the 5, that's 5y minus 15 and all of it over 3. And then exchange the variables, that's fine, so we end up with 5x minus 15 over 3 equals f inverse of x. Hands if you got all 4 problems by yourself. Let's go. You guys remind me of me in kindergarten. So you sent me that on Nearpod, yes? All right. So, copy the agenda. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye. Warm-up number 71, quadratic equations. Today we're going to put this one to rest already. Now, just for the sake of, like I said, the other day somehow something glitched on my computer and it didn't record the activity that we did with tiles and the practice that we did here in class. So I'm recording this so I can upload this one instead. But we're going to do more practice on completing the square and quadratic formula. So, tonight's home play, only 8 problems. So copy that and get a Cornell note, please, going. All right, and copy this code for today's home play. Here it goes. Code EJDZ9. 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 All right. Okay, we good? Yes, Mr. Q. All right. So, there's the agenda one more time. Get a Cornell note going, and then we'll continue from there. And just for the sake of those of you following along on YouTube, there's a home play on the screen, so you can go ahead and get that practice in. It's only 8 bitty problems only. All right. So our objective for today, I can solve and graph quadratic equations by completing the square and quadratic formula. So write your objective at the bottom left. All right, so what are we dealing with? Quadratic equations. So remind your neighbor a definition for quadratic equations without looking at your notes. A definition for quadratic equations. A definition for quadratic equations. So once again, we're looking at 2 variable equations where the highest degree is 2. And once again, that's what they look like. You should have these notes already. Yes? Yes, Mr. Q. All right, so from there we went to do the intro of completing the square using tiles. Like I said, it didn't record. That's why I'm bringing it here. Then from there, you took notes on the steps that you needed to complete in order to complete the square. And then from there, we did this one by itself at the end of that activity. So copy this next one, please, on your paper. Example NJQ, y equals x squared minus 14x plus 48. Copy that, please. Focus. Blah. Bless you. Once again, I'm going to walk you through this one. You're going to do the next one. So it reads, solve by completing the square. Y equals x squared minus 14x plus 48. Step 1 says it needs to be in standard form, which means it needs to look like this. Ax squared plus b, let it go, let it go. X squared plus bx plus c, and it has to equal to what? 0. So look at it. Is it from greatest to lowest degree? Yes, but it's not equal to what? So let's change that to 0 equals, and you can leave it on the left side, x squared minus 14x plus 48. Step 1 done. Let's go to step 2. It reads, divide the entire equation by the leading coefficient. What is my leading coefficient here, guys? An invisible what? 1. So let's divide everything by 1 just for muscle memory, which leaves it the same. Some of you are like, Mr. Q, that's silly. I don't care. 48. Be nice, Mr. Q. All right. Once again, it's just building muscle memory. It's kind of like when you're in a sports team that they ask you to either kick the ball like 100 times or shoot the basket 300 times or whatever. It's all muscle memory. Bah. Eliminate the constants. What does that mean? Take away that number from that side. So if it's positive 48, what do? Minus 48 to each side. Minus 48 to each side. We end up with negative 48 equals x squared minus 14x. How we doing? Good, Mr. Q. I love these. All right, good. Step 3 done. Step 4. For step 4, it says add b over 2 squared, which means, in other words, complete the square. Tell your neighbor what to write here to complete the square. What do we write there to complete the square? Man, you guys are so communicative. Kimberly, what do we write? She said negative 14 over 2 squared. And we do that to both sides. Negative 14 over 2 squared. That is correct. Therefore, let's see, x squared minus 14x. What is negative 14 divided by 2? Negative 7. What is negative 7 squared? 49. So therefore, on this side, I just write 49 plus negative 48. Can we simplify the left side? Yes. 49 minus 48 is 1. Step 4 is done. Let's go to step 5. Let me scoot this up a little bit. All right, so it reads, factor. So we can use the Power Rangers, right? Or the shortcut. Focus, please. My goodness. Here goes the shortcut to factor this. Since we know it's a squared, we take the square root of this one, and that is x. Square root of the last one, that is 7. Take the sign of the middle term and write that squared, and all that equal to 1. And last but not least, we're going to do 3 things. Take the square root, we're going to solve for x, and then we're going to write 2 equations. So here we go. We need to take the square root. Why do we take the square root before I do that? Tell your neighbor, see if they remember. Why do I take the square root? Why do I take square root at that step? Why, Brandon Darty? He said because we need to cancel this squared. What cancels a squared? A square root. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other side. Therefore, this cancels that. That leaves us with x minus 7 equals, what is square root of 1? Plus minus 1. From there, we solve for x. We need to leave x by itself. Plus 7 plus 7. So that leaves us with 7 plus minus 1 equals x. Technically, we are done. This is the answer, guys. However, we need to show it using 2 equations. That's why I write x sub 1, that's 1 equation. X sub 2, that's 2 equations. For x sub 1, I'm going to use the positive. So it's 7 plus 1, which is 8. For the x of 2, I'm going to use what? The minus. So it's 7 minus 1, which is 6. And by the way, since we just solved a quadratic equation, tell your neighbor the 4 names of those, please. Make sure they remember. What are the 4 names of those? Martin, go. Zeros. X-intercepts, roots, and the easiest one. Bam! All right, we good? Yes, Mr. Q. All right, let me send you the screen so you can send me your notes. I want to make sure that you're taking cold. All right, as you're sending that in. Here we go. Step 1. Do I do anything for step 1? Jaden. It's already set to 0, so step 1 done. What do I do next? Anthony, D. Divide by 1, so that leaves us with x squared minus 4x minus 5 equal to 0. I do want to see that step. Some of you are skipping that step. Next, what do I do next? Bree. Add 5 to both sides. So we end up with x squared minus 4x, empty space, equal to 5. So far, so good. Step 4, what do I do next for step 4? Courtney Jean. It's negative 4 over 2 squared. Add that to both sides, negative 4 over 2 squared. So that leaves us with x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals to 5 plus 4. Can we simplify the right side? Yes. X squared minus 4x plus 4. Next. So far, so good. I'm done with step 4. Step 5. What do I do for step 5? David, go. Okay, so how do I factor? Square root x squared, so that leaves us with x. Same to the 4, that is 2. What else? And you take the sign of the middle term and write that squared equal to 9. We're done with factoring. All right. Last but not least, we're going to take the square root, solve for x, and write 2 equations. So remind your neighbor why, before I do the square root, why do we take the square root? Why do we take the square root? Noah, why do we take the square root? What is it? To take away the squared. That is correct. So this cancels that. Whatever we do to one side, do to the other. We're left with x minus 2 equals plus minus 3. Next, we solve for x. Tell me what to do. Jacob, A. What do I do next? Yes. So he said you add 2 to each side before we write it in 2 equations. X equals 2 plus minus 3. And technically we're done right there. Is that correct? How many answers do we have here? 2. But we need to see them, which means we do this. X sub 1, 2 plus 3 is 5. X sub 2 is 2 minus 3, which is negative 1. And we know the name of those, yes? All right, make sure you send me that in. All right, let's see how you do with this next one by yourself. Here it goes. Send that in to me. Example, Star Wars Q, 0 equals x squared minus 12x minus 13. Go. All right, help me out. Get me started. Trinity, what do I do first? Change the y to 0. So this is x squared minus 8x minus 4. That's step 1 done. Continue, Selena. What do I do? divide by 1, okay? So we're left with, let it go. We're left with x squared minus 8x minus 4 equal to 0. What do I do next? Bailey, what do I do next? Add 4? Okay, add 4 to both sides. We're left with x squared minus 8x, empty space, equals to 4. What do I do next, Brandon Felix? Yeah, add negative 8 over 2 squared. Add negative 8 over 2 squared. So that leaves us with x squared minus 8x plus negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. What is negative 4 squared? 16. So we end up with 4 plus 16. Let's simplify the right side, which is 20, equals to x squared minus 8x plus 16. So far so good, yes? All right, next. Factor. How do we factor? Bree. What is it? X minus 4 squared equals 20. That is correct. How did she get that? Maya G. Yeah, square root the first term and the last term and use the sign of the middle and write it as squared. That is correct. So, we're done with 5. Remind your neighbor, why do we need to take the square root on the next step? Why do we need to take the square root? All right, help me with the last steps. Jaden, go. What do I do? Both sides. So we end up with x minus 4 equals, you're like, uh-oh, square root of 20. What? So right now, before we go into decimals, leave it as is, but I want you to write plus minus square root of 20. Plus minus square root of 20. When we leave it like that in square root form, this is an exact answer. When we do decimals, we become approximate. All right, so we're done with the square root, and the rest is the same. Let's solve for x. What do? Add 4, x equals 4 plus minus square root of 20. Technically, we are done there. However, we need to write our two equations, x of 1 and x of 2. How would you write that? Show your neighbor. How would you write this? All right. Tell me what to write. Kimberly, go. 4 plus square root of 20 and 4 minus square root of 20. And that is correct. This is exact. Write the word exact answer. Answer. However, question, do we know how to find square root of 20? Yeah, by now we know how to find decimals. Is that correct? So whenever I want decimal answers, I'll ask you to do the decimal answers. But for right now, I'm usually going to ask you for exact answers. Yes? All right. So we're good up to there. Copy this one. Example mega cube. Example mega cube. Negative 3x squared plus 18x minus 15 equal to 0. Negative 3x squared plus 18x minus 15 equal to 0. Example mega cube. Follow the process and see how you do with that one. Copy and go. All right, let's see how we did. For the sake of time, I'm going to go over this one. Standard form from highest to lowest degree equal to 0. Done. Step 2, divide the entire equation by the leading coefficient. What's the leading coefficient? -3. So therefore, we end up with x squared minus 6x plus 5 equal to 0. Hands if you got it to right there. Yeah, we got this. Number 3, eliminate the constant. -5 minus 5, we end up with x squared minus 6x, empty space, equal to -5. Next, complete the square. So what do? Add -6 over 2 squared, add -6 over 2 squared. So we end up with x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals -5 plus 9. Simplify the right side, that is 4, x squared minus 6x plus 9. Next, factor. Square root of the first, square root of the last, sine of the middle, squared, and all that equal to 4. Hands if you got it to right there by yourself. Yeah, we got this, all right. Next, we take the square root to cancel this squared. Both sides, we end up with x minus 3 equals plus minus 2. Solve for x, plus 3 plus 3. X equals 3 plus minus 2. Then we write our two equations. X of 1 is 3 plus 2, which is 5. And x of 2 is 3 minus 2, which is 1. Hands if you got that by yourself. Let's go! Let's go! Send me your work, please. Did this help? The extra practice help? Yes? Because tonight this is all you. Except for I did give you two that are all exact. So send me that in, please. And I do want to get to, just briefly, make sure that you remember that these three forms, we already solved quadratic equations by graphing, square roots, and factoring. And the next part is the quadratic formula. I'm pretty sure you memorize it, but here it goes again on your paper. Write this down. Quadratic formula. X equals minus b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. X equals minus b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. X equals minus b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. X equals minus b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. X equals minus b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now, why do I need to know this, Mr. Q? Because this one is like the master key to any quadratic equation. If the quadratic equation is in standard form, you can just select from the quadratic equation A, B, and C, substitute in here, and that's your solution. All right, do we need to go over one of those? No, Mr. Q, we're experts. All right, for right now, I'm good. All right, so you can put away your notes. However, tell your neighbor the quadratic formula without looking at your notes. All right, looks like Laura's got it. Maya A's got it. I see you, Maya. All right, Marley's got it. I got you, Marley. All right. Yes, you do. You got it. All right, let's see. Once again, x equals minus b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Have a good one, everyone. Enjoy your home play. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.